Bitcoin has recently took a huge dip, and in this video I want to explain to you my thoughts on the next trades that I'm taking, and also give you a clear analysis on the long-term price action of Bitcoin. If you're new to this channel, my name is Tyrell. I've been live trading on this channel now for the past few years, and we've had some amazing trades even more recently inside of our community with this 61% trade on BTC, and also members of our community clearly also catching some amazing trades across meme coins as well as futures as well, all across the board. And by doing this, it gives you a clear example of the levels of that we're going to be trading, and also an unbiased, non-emotional opinion. Now I want to get this started off by saying, guys, none of this is financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, and anything in this video should not be taken as financial advice. I'm simply a trader giving you my personal opinions on what I am deciding to do for some unbiased clarity on the markets at this time. Now let's take a look at the overall market. I think it's very important to always zoom out on a chart, and as we get more data, you can actually see areas of extreme emotion, which would have been up here as we was breaking 100k, toying with this 100k level, and we broke it, and areas of extreme fear as we seen last year after the meme coin launch, and as we came down to about 50,000. Now what I personally like to do, especially on this channel, is I like to stay away from a news focus and move closer towards a simple chart focus. I'm sure you've heard the saying, should I say, show me the chart, I'll show you the news. And that is becoming more and more true as we start to see A, the denial of a possible bear market, and B, the optimism of maybe a 5-year cycle. So as we can see for Bitcoin over here, since we came out of this range of 2024, and we've been in a consistent uptrend. I'm sure you've probably seen this uptrend on my channel, especially if you followed it for a long time. And you can see that we have actually broken this upwards channel, and we are now in a new range of pretty much, if I pull it up over here, you can actually see we have a high here and pretty much a possible low all the way down here. Okay, so this is giving us some very clear setups for what I think can be some very, very, very good swings. First, obviously we have the scenario of a bear market, because we have had basically a sweep over here. You would call this a spring, and then since then we have been in a very, very clear downtrend. The trend has changed, right? Not only from breaking this upwards channel, which I just showed you, but also on these smaller time frames where we can see that even in this max fear part of the market, I'm sure if you guys remember when we was in this stage of the market, it was extremely fearful. I honestly even thought it was going to be a bear market too. Stable coins were at all-time high, the tariffs were going absolutely crazy, and uncertainty in the market was at its extreme. We then broke it. We've seen a bounce, and this is why I always say to have an unbiased opinion on the market, because once you bounce out of a range, it's pretty much a good time to look for a potential reversal. Now, I don't think we're at that stage yet. My targets for potential reversals will probably be around 73,000, and if we reach a point of control at 67,000, I think these are great areas to potentially look for some longs. Now, whenever you're trading, having a community right now of about 8,600 people, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, I'll just zoom in a little bit here. We have a bunch of people in this community, and I speak to a lot of people, especially in the leverage lounge, about the overall market, about what everybody's thoughts are, and I start to understand that most people are simply on extremely low time frames. They're on their 15-minute or the 5-minute, maybe we see a 1 hour, right, if we're lucky. And a lot of times that can put you in a position where you're going to be missing out on some great opportunities. Obviously, I'll get into the lower time frames. Yesterday we caught a great scalp over here for $800 just on a short on Bitcoin, a quick short on Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at things with an unbiased, non-emotional opinion and really set ourselves up for some swing trades as well, because it's all about preparation. Now, as you can see, since we have broken back into the value area low, that has provided as a resistance, And anytime we break into a value area, I'm always looking for either the point of control or I'm looking for the value area low. Now, these trade sales might take days, weeks, or months. That's why you should subscribe to the channel so you don't actually miss out on it. In fact, if we look at the weekly over here, you can see it actually took us about 112 days to reach the bottom of this pattern. You see a nice bullish candle, you break out the channel as I said, and that gives you a nice setup for a potential long. Now, once we come down into this range, what I'm going to do, I'm going to set alerts for this level, and whether I'm live or whether I decide to make a video, we will be taking longs from this potential position. Okay. Now we have to look at the lower time frames and come into the daily and start to look out this range, this new range, which we're actually developing. Now you might be wondering, okay, how in the world did you manage to catch this nice BTC short? And that is because since we had this low and this high over here, it gave us a nice range where again, we can look on kind of a fractal of what we had on the larger time frames in the smaller time frames. And that's how we set up nice shorts. You have a breakout of the value area high again, and a breakdown to basically to the value area low. Funny how you see that on the larger time frames as well. A break of the value area high, and then we'll probably, in my opinion, coming down to this value area low of 50k. Now this would set us up for a great spring, because you have to think a lot of liquidity is going to be getting built up down here, right? There's going to be a ton of liquidity being built underneath this support level right here, right? If you think of it logically, if you're looking to set up a long trade, well, what do most people say? Well, they say, yeah, look at the support that turned resistance. This is going to be our major level. But that level has already shown itself, and that level has already been traded and built up liquidity. It makes sense to look for the previous highs, which were resistance, turning into previous support. But now it's going to give the market an opportunity to capture that liquidity. And honestly, since I have been focusing my trading more on liquidity over just simple patterns, I think this is confluence, but it's not always something which you want to follow. I'm sure you've been in many of trades which you have a pattern, doesn't play out, right? Or you see on like YouTube channels, they make patterns all the time and they kind of don't play out because there's not a high percentage of those things playing out. But when you look at liquidity, liquidity tends to play out extremely well, as we see, and especially on the lower time frames. For me, it works really well these time frames, as we've seen in this area up here. Okay, so my setup for the next trade is first of all going to be looking at the Asian Open, which is basically happening right now. We've seen that the last time we had the Asia Open, we've seen huge downturn. This was because of the Japanese yen. So personally, I think we can possibly see that again. We've already had a sweep of the highs. So once I see where the candle closes, literally in the next coming hours, I'll be looking at setting up some more shorts over here and looking to take that again to the bottom of the range down here. Now, the reason why I'm looking for short setups rather than a reversal is simply because if we have a look at the liquidity heat map over here and we head over to Bitcoin, BTC, USD, the liquidity heat map is going to show us on all different exchanges where there are areas of liquidity. And funny enough, guys, I didn't even look at this, but as you can see, surprise, surprise, there was a bunch of liquidity above this area of resistance. That's where people are putting their stop losses. And again, it's already just been swooped out. Now we have this liquidity down here at 84,000. Surprise, surprise, where that area of support is on the opposite side and where we sprang up. So this gives us an opportunity to sweep the highs of liquidity, come down as we go into the US hours, and possibly look at catching again another nice short trade setup as we go back into the Asian Open. Now guys, one indicator that I've been using isn't really a indicator for like MACD or something like this, but it is an indicator that allows you to see the different opening times and closing times of the markets. You can see over here, this was the Asian market, where basically Asian market was about here to here. And again, we're going into another Asian market, which is going to be here to here, which again sets us up for another short after we swept the liquidity here again. And the reason why we need to be doing this, right, there's actually a reason for this. It's not just because people want to hunt your stop losses, because this is going to set us up, in my opinion, for a bounce. I genuinely think that where the market is now is going to set us up for a great bounce where we can then come back up to the highs. But I do think, you do know, that there is a lot of liquidity that's going to be built up at these levels of 100K, okay? But to get up there, first we need to go through accumulation. We need to reaccumulate, you know? Markets, they don't really move in bull and bear markets. I know a lot of people just want to focus on the emotional, the news and social media. Oh my gosh, BTC is doing this. Oh my gosh, BTC is doing that. But what I've realized is, especially being somebody which has traded these moves, I was actually looking at my community inside of here and I was making some community posts about 2 years ago in this community post. I don't even know where it is for this video. I need to learn how to start actually flipping back to that. It's easy on mobile. But inside of the community that I've been posting, I have a trade from all the way down here at like 22,000. And I remember when we was down here at 22K, and instead of looking at this like, okay, we was in an area of accumulation and now we're breaking out and heading up to the next leg, okay, it was all news. It was, oh, and this news and that news and this is, and we're so back and it's so over, right? If you've seen this pattern, we actually just experienced it with the Japanese situation, the we're so back, it's so over fair value gap fill, right? We just seen that again with a nice we're so back, it's so over, and it's actually happened on the hourly. You can see it right here. We have the we're so back over here, and then we have the it's so over right here, right? And you know, again, on a macro, when you're doing this on a daily or a weekly or even sometimes even a monthly, right? It's a great time for major longs and major bounces. But when you're doing this on the lower time frames, I think in my opinion, it's just as simply a setup for a possible continuation. Okay, so have we had an hourly close yet? Actually live recording this video, I might actually put on a trade. Let's see. No, we haven't closed hourly yet. We'll wait. Okay, and that continuation, in my opinion, could set us up to sweep this liquidity at 72,000 and run up. I think one of the clear things that I want to get across to you guys, especially as some new traders, is look at the market in accumulation, distribution, accumulation, distribution, accumulation, distribution. Okay, that in my opinion is how BTC is moving. Not necessarily in macro bull markets, macro bear markets. And when you have distribution, there's only a limited time for you to be able to get out in profits, right? We have 1 here, 2 here. That's the most optimal time to get profits. And it never looks like that. It's always a thought of it's going to go higher. Just like how when we have distribution, it's the opposite. It's a longer time period and it's a period of we can go lower. So think about this. When we're at highs, it's short periods of time and it's the thought of, oh, we can go higher. When you're at lows, it's a longer period of time and it's a thought of we can go what? Lower, okay? So we haven't hit that area of it being dragged out and we can go lower. And you know that because anytime we have small price movements in Bitcoin, you see hundreds of millions of dollars of longs being liquidated. So it's not a part of, I'm giving the mass opinion here. I'm actually giving the opposite opinion because everybody thinks that we can have a macro bounce, right? It's not off the cards, but it's going to take a lot of work because of the simple supply and demand and the fact that we have, you know, BTC whales that have been holding Bitcoin since less than $100, selling billions of dollars. It's simple supply and demand, right? We have holders, right, in terms of a chart that have been buying Bitcoin from basically down here when it's all the way up here that are selling. And then you have the fact of all the people that have also entered positions up here. And then you also have long positions here, which is the reason why anytime we're bouncing, we're coming down. And we haven't showed a clear floor where we're going to reaccumulate and then look to go back towards the upside. And this happens every single cycle, guys. Like, I'm not going to have those channels which is going to drag you down until we're absolutely at the bottom and then absolutely capitulate. You know, I remember over here, especially last cycle, this was a talk about going to 100,000, right? It was a talk about 100K. No, we can reverse. Okay, we can reverse. Yeah, BTC can come back. We're so back, it's so over, FTX collapse, right? That's not what we want to be seeing right now. What we simply want to do is trade the chart and look at a continuation. Now, this happens with a lot of tokens. I'll go through Solana, etc. in a second. But this happens with a bunch of tokens, similarly to like Zcash right now. When we look at Zcash, okay, and we type in ZEC, you will notice that ZEC has done the exact same thing. We have a massive accumulation, like for years, where things go quiet. Nobody cares about privacy. They did before, but they don't now. And then we have huge areas of distribution. If you go onto the daily chart, it starts to look extremely clear. You know, I was actually talking live yesterday in my VC, and somebody was saying, well, what about the narrative? You know, what about, you know, the future? It's a long-term hold. Yes, it is. But do you want to be holding a token down 80%? You might like the token. You might believe in the narrative. Does that mean that you have to hold it down 80%? In my opinion, no, right? As you can see, we have a high. Highs got swept, and then we're going to straight back down into lows, and we have still not found a floor yet, which has revealed itself, and where we can have a distribution. And just in terms of looking at the market, this could come all the way down to $186. So if you was holding it from up here when it was the future of finance, you're now down 40% on spot, right? Big difference to if you believed in the narrative during accumulation. Then for you, it doesn't really matter if you got in at these positions. You might have taken a little bit of profit when you're 13x in like 3 weeks. And then if it comes down up here, you're still up 2-3x, right? You've got no problems, no issues, right? Very similar to down here. If people have been holding this thing since last cycle, you kind of know it's not coming that down to $23 pretty much again, right? You can see down here. So that, in my opinion, just goes to show you all areas of supply and all areas of accumulation and distribution. Again, similar thing with Troll. I think Troll is a great narrative. I think it's a great meme coin. But again, it's just exactly the same pattern. Accumulation, distribution, and then we come straight back down here, right? It's not a fact of everybody believes in the narrative, because if they did, there'd be no sell pressure and the chart would just be flat. There is sell pressure and the chart is coming to back down, and it needs to get then again show accumulation. Similarly to what happened with Zcash, where Zcash had this massive rally, comes down to basically zero, reaccumulates, and then goes up for the next leg. Same thing that happened with Uranus coin. We literally see the same thing. Okay, accumulation, distribution, one more like go at it with a few like KOL buys and a little bit of a marketing push. Still doesn't manage to break the highs. It's basically everyone's trying to get out. And then, yeah, we're back at zero again. Same thing with pretty much any coin, right? Dogecoins has multiple areas of these accumulation and distribution. Again, don't look at it as bull market and bear market, because that's what's going to take your attention off the market. I know this because I did this, right? And it was one of the biggest mistakes that I made. When you go through an area of distribution is like 10 times longer than, so accumulation, which is at the bottom, accumulation is like 10 times longer than distribution. There's no hype. Nobody wants to talk about coins, but people are secretly buying it, and it will drown you out of the market. You won't look at the chart. You won't see when it's broken out. You will only see once it's in an absolute rally and everybody decides to talk about it, because they're shelling you their bags, right, to get out. Same thing with Pepe. Again, Pepe had this huge distribution up here, came back down. And now we need to wait for another area of accumulation. Okay, so does that mean that there is no money to be made? Of course not. There is a bunch of money to be made on the short side. We also have tokens like World Libertyfi. World Libertyfi is a trade setup that I'm looking for. There's a bunch of liquidities up here, okay, just above this fair value gap, and also tapping at the value area high. That is going to set us up for a great short opportunity again to also come and look at the lows, okay? Something like this. I'm actually coming in from 17, so it's actually more something like this. Boom. That's going to give us another short setup over here as well. And then when we have a look at anything, even Monad, I know a lot of people want to know my thoughts on Monad. I think Monad can go down 80% below private sell price. So even though we had this huge pre-market speculation, okay, this, in my opinion, can go lower. A lot lower, in my opinion, simply because, again, this was no distribution. This was pre-market speculation. This bounce here was everybody's, like, literally everyone's sold that managed to get in on the pre-market, on a private sale, for they got a nice 2x. And now this is the time for the bag holding and the 80% despair. Before then, we probably run up again, okay? So in short, guys, those are my thoughts. My thoughts are very simple and my thoughts are very clear. Look at things in terms of accumulation and distribution. It's one of the biggest mindset shifts that you're probably going to have. Write this down. When the market pumps, there's a limited time to get out. When the market dumps and starts to reaccumulate, there's a limited time to get in. But it's so boring that most people are not looking at the chart. And if you can stay one step ahead and keep an eye out when nobody does, right? You can look at the Monads, you can look at the Zcashes, you can look at the World Libertyfis when the time comes. That's going to be our time to reaccumulate these tokens and look to ride them into the next cycle. You know, whether it happens in 2026 or whether that happens at the end of 2026 going into like 2027, that is something which you need to keep an eye on. In the short term BTC, I'm looking for the short setup as we bounce up. Well, actually, as we secure that point of control. Okay. And then we're going to be looking for 67,000. I think it's quite funny and ironic how the previous high of the market was 69,000. It would be very funny with the previous, if the macro low on BTC is 67,000. So they're my setups, guys. If you do want to join the community, you'll find a link in the description. It is the top link underneath any of my videos. If you just simply go to the top link, you'll see it right here. You can say join the trenches. You can also find the best trading platform, that being Blowfin. That's going to be where we're setting up our trades. That is $800 trade on Bitcoin. And it's also where you can find out how to join the trading community that we have, to surround yourself with people that are also just simply on the same mindset, a mission that you might be on. So I appreciate you guys a lot, more than you guys know. I look forward to seeing you guys inside the community. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm probably going to be live streaming today, getting this set up on the BTC short as well, putting my own personal funds where my mouth is. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Peace.